I'm doing another book tag created by the oh so awesome people over at Epic Reads. Salutations! Welcome to Learning the Language of Literacy. My name is Sophia Lee, and today I'll be doing the Extraordinary Means book tag. So, if you don't already know this, the Extraordinary Means book tag was created to tie in with the book titled Extraordinary Means by Robin Schneider, which is coming out at the end of May. I talked about it in my most anticipated May releases. And the general idea of this tag is that all of the questions have to do with the extraordinary means you would do to obtain books or meet authors. And of course, as fangirls and book nerds, we all know we would do quite a lot to do those things. So let's get started with the questions. Question number 1. I would give up the internet for a month for a signed first edition of this book. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, no doubt. I've rambled on in previous tags and videos before on my channel about how much The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe meant to me as a child. To be honest, I think I've only read the book itself once, but the amount of times I've listened to the audiobook probably would total around 100 hours because I have just re-listened to and relived and re-experienced the entire series multiple times. That's literally all I did as a child. And to have a first edition signed copy by the man who basically invented fantasy, for me at least as a reader, would be absolutely astounding. Question number 2. I would give up pizza for a year if it meant I could sit next to this author on a long plane ride. Tina Fey. I know she's not your classic author, but she did write her own memoir, and she is an author in terms of all the wonderful screenplays she produces. I just finished binge watching The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt with my family, and OMG, that is the best Netflix original series I have ever seen and one of the funniest TV shows of all time, in my opinion. Recently, I've come to really admire screenplay writers, especially of comedy, because they have to be so up to date with pulp culture and just current events and able to tie them in so seamlessly while making it humorous into their shows without also crossing lines and boundaries. And I think Tina Fey does this in an absolutely amazing way. So if I could just sit next to her during an entire play ride, creeping her out and asking her questions, that would be perfect. Question number 3. I would sit through 1,000 hours of commercials if it would ensure that Hollywood made this book into a movie. Falling into Place by Amy Zhang. It's not that I'm actually dying to see this book in movie form, I'm just extremely interested from a technical aspect with how it would be produced. This made it onto my top 14 books of 2014 last year, and I absolutely adored it, mostly because of both the story, obviously, but the way that it was told and illustrated so perfectly by around, I think, maybe 20-30 different characters, and we felt like we knew them, we felt like those were developed as well, but they were actually telling the story and describing their lives in terms of this other character. So it's basically center of the universe and all these other characters who all tie into her story. I would love to see how a filmmaker could handle this and the process of just trying to develop each character without the audience going, oh my god, this is such a blur of things, what the heck do I do? Question number 4. I would never read a new book again if it meant I could live inside this book. Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I'm actually not dying to live in this world, but I do think it is one of the most well-developed worlds I have ever read about. This was actually the very first book I read in 2015, and it will be on my top 15 books of 2015 because it is absolutely breathtaking in its world building. Even though at times the book was slow in terms of plot and pacing, I was always so intrigued and interested with the ins and outs and the dynamics of society, because basically, if you don't know, this book is set in a video game world where you put on a headset and gloves and you can essentially live your entire life, which is creepy but also really interesting to think about from a perspective of our 21st century society where we actually are tied to video games and internet so much. Question number 5. I would let my Google search history be made public if it meant I could be best friends with this author. I think we all know the answer to this is Sarah J. Maas. She is my favorite author of all time in terms of personality, and of course her novels are absolutely fantastical. But I have met Sarah J. Maas once, and believe you me, I will take every opportunity possible in my lifetime to meet her again and again because I just got such positive vibes and energy from her, and she had such good advice on writing and reading. And on top of that, it would just be so cool to be her best friend because she seems like you can totally chill out with her, talk about anything. I just love her so much, and I would die to be her best friend. And I would totally let my Google search history be exposed for her, even though what I search up on Google is probably not what you want to be exposed. Question number 6. I would donate everything I owned to Goodwill if it meant I could date this book character in real life. A few months ago, if this tag had come out, I would not consider it a very hard question to answer, but considering I actually got a boyfriend, it was a pretty hard question to answer because my boyfriend is basically like a fictional character in terms of personality quirks and characteristics, but I chose Max from The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord, which was my favorite fluffy contemporary I've read so far this year. I love Max so much because he's a reader and he's a nerd, and it just seems like he'd be such a good friend as well as romantic prospect because he's so sweet and kind and sensitive and passionate, and all the feels from reading that book are coming back right now. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I will put in the comments below who I tag for this, and I hope to see your videos as well. Tell me in the comments below what your answers would be, or just feel free to say that I tagged you. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time. Keep calm and read on. Goodbye!